We always look at failure as something negative, right? And we want this personified perfection,
Yes.
right? If I don't get it right. But letting you trip up, by giving you that goal. I mean, there's multiple ways to get to that same goal with that same timeline, with the same outcome. Then you lack the intuitive,
Yes.
innovative, creative, right? All the same reasons of why you were getting disengaged in that role right out of it. You're not even giving them the opportunity to grow that part of it. And then I think you end up getting more.
It feels good, man. It feels good, right? Yo, I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles.
All right, Richard, are you ready?
I'm set.
All right, Ty, you ready?
Let's do it, Kev.
Timeout. Tyler, who are we taking a timeout with today?
Hey, y'all. We got a special guest here on Timeout with Leaders. I think it's episode 142. We have the Richard Hernandez, the technology, performance, and benchmarking manager at Chevron Phillips. Richard, thanks for spending your lunch hour with me and Kev. We're excited to pick your brain on who Richard Hernandez is. But then let's first start out with asking you, if you could go pro in any sport, what would it be?
Oh, my goodness. See, I was a very late bloomer with sports. I never played, and then it wasn't until I got much older that I started. But I guess tennis. Tennis was the game that I always loved and enjoyed. And I guess that's what I would go with there.
Strong backhand. Are you into the pickleball stuff? That's like JV. That's like junior varsity tennis, man.
Okay, so I've never played pickleball. Everyone tells me about it and how much fun it is, but I've resisted.
Awesome. So I'm like 40 now, so like my quick twitch muscles don't work. And what's cool is that ball has holes in it. So when people smash it, the air goes through the holes and it slows the ball down, man.
Nice.
Okay, this sounds more my speed.
Yeah. Well, I haven't played yet either, Richard, but maybe you and we'll have Tyler take us out on the court.
Dude, guys, it's amazing. I'll play like 2-on-2 in my neighborhood. And like, so I don't call people old anymore. I call them wise. But like, there's some wise couples out there that just take me and my buddy to school. It'll be like 11-3. We lose. So like, people like north of 60. And I'm like, it's very humbling, man, guys. You can get good at it. But yeah, man. Kev, fire away, dude.
Richard, I thought of this driving in today because there's always like some invention that I see and it's like, why didn't I think of that? What's one invention that you've seen over your lifetime that you had the same instance, or maybe one like me where it's like, I thought about that 10 years ago, but never went after it?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, and it'll show a little bit of my how not old, how wise I am. How do we phrase this? Yes. And so way back when, I used to love listening to music, and so it was always like, wow, if you could just, now computers are becoming accessible to people, and everyone's starting to have them in their homes. If you could just get this music on your computer, and it would just be accessible, that would be really cool, And everyone was like, oh, that's strange. That's weird. Like, why would you want to do that? Everyone, we loved it. Okay, this is going back again, too. Like, we loved the tapes and the the CDs and all that. And so, yeah, and now it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, missed that boat. Yeah. By a lot.
Oh man, yeah. Well, in my head, it's like, how is that ever going to be free, or pay $5.99 a month for the unlimited stuff? I even watched the Spotify documentary the other day, and it was hilarious. Do you remember Bay?
Yeah. Napster was the other one.
Yeah, so like it's like a document, or it's like a docu-series, but like on Netflix, and it's got characters, and it's hilarious. It's like the Pirate Bay guys like talking trash to Sony, and the Sony CEO just can't handle it, guys. He's just losing his mind. That it got to a point where the Sony CEO was at a party, a very ritzy party, and someone was like, throw this music on, and the other ritzy CEO had Pirate Bay, and this CEO of Sony just lost his cool at this like pretty swanky party. He was like, why are you stealing this music? It's never gonna be this. And it's I think it's a Sweden. It's made in like Swedish from Sweden, so it's got kind of dubbed with English titles over it. And Richard, what if you could replace a lead singer and be the lead singer of any band? Who would you take the mic from, dude?
Okay, so it would be the Killers. So the Las Vegas band, the Killers. So recently went to a concert there, and they played it was like the 20-year anniversary of their album, Hot Fuss.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. It was just amazing. And they just had so much energy. And it was like the very like classic Las Vegas glitz and glam type of thing. I was like, oh my gosh, that is a rock star right there. What would it be like to be able to be on that stage and do that for everybody? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, man, my brother went to the same one, the 20th anniversary from Hot Fuzz. I think he saw it in Kansas City or somewhere.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Heck, yeah.
I was in Vegas when I saw it.
You went to Vegas to see it?
Yes, they did a residency at the Coliseum there, and it was awesome.
Nice. I like that. Richard, my other question: we all have random good skills or things that we're good at. I was just playing with an old tech deck the other day because my son finally bought one of those old little micro skateboards, and I forgot how good I was at one of those. But what's one fun fact, like one skill that you could go professional in?
Oh goodness, skill. I'm not sure if it's skill or not. So. Growing up, I used to like to do drawings and paintings, and my dad used to do it, but like he was self-taught, and so and he never let anybody see like what he was working on. It was always a big secret, and we would see it after the fact. But then growing up, it was this bug I constantly had, and then when I started working, I actually did night classes at the Glassell School of Art. And then I just started doing it, and I loved it, and I started painting some stuff. And I had some friends who had a gallery, and then they said, oh, why don't you just bring some stuff by and we'll see what happens. And I said, okay, sure, And so I would take stuff to them every couple of weeks, and I had like about 5 or 6 pieces actually sell.
Oh my God.
And I was just so thrilled. I was like, and they're like, what price? I'm like, I don't care what price. Like, if someone wants to buy it, just give it to them. Just like, I don't care. I just want the story that someone saw my art and wanted it,
That's awesome.
So I love that.
Rules, man. Well, man, let's dive in. Man, Richard, do people love working for you, dude? Like I feel like when I first met you, you were the same dude. I was like, who is this guy?
Well, I sure hope so. You'd have to ask them, but yeah, I think we get along all right.
Okay. Well, and in your career, have you ever received any critical feedback from how you lead or anything that make you more polished to the Richard Hernandez you are on July 30th of 2025?
Well, funny enough, I remember. I was in charge of this, we call it the grad program. And so it's the brand new engineers that get hired out of college, and had this one engineer, and he was awesome. He was just a go-getter and was always doing great things. And so my style was to be very nice and to be very welcoming. And I was a new supervisor at the time. And so I was, talking with him, and I could tell he was a little disappointed, and I was giving him all good feedback. And I said, hey, what's going on? He said, well, it'd be helpful if you gave me some more critical things to, so that I could work on. And I said, but you're doing a good job, I don't want to yell at you just for the sake of yelling at you, And then he said the thing that stuck with me for such a long time. He's like, yeah, but nobody wants a coach that does not make you better. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that hurt, because it was really true, and it stuck with me. I said, oh, okay, yes. Wow, that's a really great perspective. And there's more to just the nice, welcoming part of it to help people grow and develop. And so, yeah. So I got that critical feedback from someone I was mentoring.
That's amazing, because I think I'm like you. When you approach leadership, you've worked for the leaders that use fear as their main motivation, and they have no problem telling you what you suck at. And even if you think you're good at it, they'll still tell you that you stink at it, or it's not that great. And then they'll end up regurgitating that information in a meeting and taking it as their own. And I think you go through that experience enough that you never want to be perceived as that individual. But the more I go through my journey, right, is that discomfort is actually on the other side of discomfort is a lot of growth. And having those critical conversations, I think, is something that I'm growing in at as a leader as well, to STEM, and which I love, is what you say is like a coach always makes people better. And if you're always saying, hey, you're doing a good job, or thank you so much, and very appreciative, they'll be limited by the confines of your inability to give that feedback. So what's one thing, like, as you've moved up into leadership, that you were told or you heard, maybe it was a phrase, maybe it was a motto that was completely untrue, but we continue to re-say that same phrase today in leadership?
I think one of the things that I've heard, and that's kind of been prevalent in a lot of cultures, is that in order to be a good leader, you have to be the loudest person in the room, and you have to be able to overpower and take the room. When you walk in, you just own the room and you take it over. And I think that's so false, especially now. And I think people are a lot more aware of the value of the different things that different leadership styles bring. That some people can be very collaborative, some people can be very authoritative, sure, and that has its place too. And what I found throughout the years is you have to find your own strength, like what you like. Okay, great. You like to be, your comfort zone is being the good guy, the nice guy, the encouraging guy, the visionary. But then you also have to have that other skill set behind you of like, now I have to put on this other hat of really candid and candor feedback, and have to put on this other hat of something else. And I think that's like the truer value that I don't really see when a lot of people talk about, okay, what's a good leader and what makes a good leader?
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody that kind of brings both skill sets, and then we keep hearing these terms, emotional, literacy or emotional intelligence. And I think to your point, there's a time to use a multitude of those, but it's also coaching to that, to your intern's perspective, right? As a recent graduate, was coaching to their style that they know that they need, right, in order to get the most out of them. And a lot of that takes you slowing down and stopping to look at, not looking at the outcomes or the numbers or the KPIs, and actually slowing down to see the people behind those numbers. So,
yeah. Dude, yeah, and Richard, you mentioned different cultures, man, and working at a place like Chevron. Can you kind of walk us through like the global aspect of this, dog? Like, like you take the stage, man. Like, because you're not probably just dealing with people in Houston. You're probably all over the world, if I had to imagine. So, like, what's that like? And how do you? I hate to use the word navigate because I hear that dang word all the time, but I guess how do you set your sails, man?
No, it's fun. So I had a previous role, and it was in licensing and developing major capital projects. And so we had projects all over the world. We worked in China, we worked in India, we worked with engineering teams everywhere. And it was great. It was probably one of the most fun times that I've had. We got to travel everywhere, see different things, and working with these folks, there's just like the weird quirks that will just get you, like, and they're kind of fun things. Like, we were in India and we're negotiating, right? And the folks in the room from India, to them, this means yes, and this means no. And so as we're negotiating, like, we figured this out really fast, right? But the whole time we kept on getting tripped up, and so I'd be writing something down. They're like, hey, can you put this in the agreement? And I'd be like, no, and I'd write it down. They're like, how come you didn't write it down? Like, because I don't agree with you. And then we'd stare at each other and we'd go, okay, yes. And so, like, just the weirdest little quirks that you see from everywhere. And then everyone has their own, like, priorities, everyone has their own things about, like, what's important to them. And it's mixed in with, their culture, and it's mixed in with their company culture and priorities. And, it's tough to, at first, to say, like, there's a right way. And then what you find out is the right way is what makes it work and what gets us to the goal. And so those kinds of things are really, like, valuable. But then you see the, like, really universal stuff, right? And the really universal stuff is everyone likes to sit down and have a good meal. Mm-hmm. Everybody on some level wants to connect and have that connection with other people. And when you're working in teams like this, like one of the biggest things is everyone wants to know that their time was valuable and they contributed to something amazing. So if you can get people around that kind of goal and let them know like what you're doing is this bigger thing and it is amazing, then you can kind of get through all these other diversity and quirks and all these other things that can sometimes provide a challenge.
Yeah, and I love how simplistic you're right. We tend to overcomplicate, and that's why I think Tyler and I always laugh is we overcomplicate the simple, and especially as humans, right? We tend not to talk about the same challenges and struggles that we all go through, but we beat around the bush, right? And I love how you put that into these universal similarities and throughout all these countries that you get to work with is that these are some, and I think connection is one of those things that we all as a species really focus on, but as individuals in your own team and your own culture, I found like being listened to, valued, heard, appreciated, like those, and yes, they come in all different forms and all different flavors, but ultimately that's where people really feel that big word engagement, and we overcomplicate business and leadership so much where then it becomes this convoluted, am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong or good versus bad, instead of just leading as an authentic individual that might not have all the answers to all the questions. How do you get to, because obviously you got a lot of egos, right, at a lot of those tables sometimes that come in with, maybe they have a hidden agenda and they're trying to manipulate you to the goal that they have because they're not going to ever tell you that. But how do you deal with all those different personalities and all those different egos to ultimately get to that point where they feel like they made a contribution, they feel like they added some value into that decision or that particular deal? What have you found to be the most successful to get that consensus, if you will?
Yeah, and I think for everyone it's a little bit different, and it's that thing again about everyone kind of leans into their strengths. And for me, I think I'm trying to think. There's an actual term like for leadership styles, and I think mine is called transformational leadership, and it's more about creating a vision and then telling that story and then getting everyone to buy into that story and understand what their contribution is to that whole thing. And so that tends to resolve a lot of issues immediately. If everyone kind of understands where we're at, where we're going, then it immediately lines people up. And then people find that their own unique personalities and strengths and all that, they figure out, okay, how do I make that and translate it into this goal? Because what people hate is when, you tell them like, okay, you're wrong and I need you to change who you are and how you work and what you do. There's no greater way to like disengage someone.
Oh, definitely. And I just love what you said is like, because I think a lot of times in business too, when you tell a story, and storytelling is so powerful, and I mean, you can take the Bible as an example, or the Quran, or any of those, right? It's just a myriad of stories of other people's perspectives of these times in history. But there's such an emotional connection which leads to action, right? And in business for so long, I feel like we tried to write emotion out of business, right? It's just business. And when you're making these tough decisions, laying people off or deciding to sell off a certain part of the business. But it's awesome to hear somebody that's at the table of some of these giant acquisitions or decisions that need to be made, bringing that emotional side of it to sell that vision. So as an individual, they can see themselves as to how they help move that needle or how they hurt it or hinder it. So that's a really cool thing. But we all have mentors in our life, right? People that we can go back to, whether it's a family member, or whether it was one of our first bosses. Who's one of those key mentors for you that really, I guess, set you on a path to what you're doing today?
Yeah. Oh, there's a few, and so I'm happy to be able to say that there was a few people who really helped me throughout my career and influenced kind of what I was going to do. My previous boss, who just recently retired, was one of those people for me. And he was kind of one of these quiet people. And, I was, at the time I was working at the plant and in the facility, and I was getting frustrated. I was kind of there was nothing new for me to do. I wanted to do more, innovation and strategy, and I just couldn't do it there. And so he ran this group, Global Process Engineering. And one day we just sat and we talked about opportunities, and he just took the time to talk to me. And then throughout my career working for him, it was awesome. But prior to that, he kind of scared me a little bit. He was one of those people that sat in the back of the meetings and would never say anything except no. Every now and then he'd try up and say no, and people would scurry around him. So I was like, I don't know, I don't know what it's like to work for this guy. But I asked around, and then everyone who ever worked for him just loved him. I mean, just thought the best of him. And now, I worked for him for about 7 years, and I just thought he was amazing because he did this people-centric thing where he was very focused on goals. He was very clear about what you needed to do when you needed to do it. But he always let you figure it out. He let you go forward, and he would let you trip up if you needed to. And then you would just clean up your own mess afterwards, and you would learn so much more from it. And so he's someone that I do miss having around a lot.
That's cool, because I think we always look at failure as something negative, right? And we want this
Yes.
personified perfection, right? If I don't get it right, but letting you trip up, by giving you that goal. I mean, there's multiple ways to get to that same goal with that same timeline, with the same outcome. Then
Yes.
you lack the intuitive, innovative, creative, right? All the same reasons of why you were getting disengaged in that role right out of it. You're not even giving them the opportunity to grow that part of it. And then I think you end up getting more doers ultimately. And I have found too is that if you're telling them to do something, that the likelihood of them actually doing it is slim to none.
Yeah, it's one of the things in the group that I work in. The people that I have in my group are just amazing, and so they're extremely experienced. They're highly motivated. They go after and do their own thing. Half the time, I'm just trying to get out of their way and let them run with everything. And the job structure is called the entrepreneurial gap, and so you give them these major goals and these major things, and they actually don't have any resources. They don't have a budget. They don't have anything that they can they don't have people reporting to them, but they go out into these facilities and they go out and they find the work, and then they have to convince everybody that, hey, this is the way to do it and this is the way to work. And so just like an entrepreneur, when you're starting out and figuring out you've got nothing and you're just, you're being very creative and approaching things different ways. This group works that exact same way. And so I love that kind of approach.
That's really cool.
Dude, that's what me and Kevin been talking about for years, man. Like the entrepreneur.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just makes sense, and you feel a little, I don't know if the word's, if it's special or something, but it is kind of neat to have that freedom of an entrepreneurial gap is what you just called it. I've never heard that, but that's exactly what it is. And if everyone's coming to work maybe with their own ideas is a big thing to people, I think. If we're just all chasing just some training plan that we all got, and we all got the same training plan, but heck, we're all different human beings. I don't know, just getting out of that mold. But Richard, I wanted to really go back to your art real quick. Did you learn any lessons from art that you could apply to leadership today?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's one of the things that I love is taking lessons from things that seem not related at all and applying them. And art is a great example. So one of the things is in art, in order to do something well, you have to cross this gap where you see things the way they actually are. And so let me see. If I were to draw for you. Let's see. Like this.
Okay.
Don't judge my art, but
I would buy that.
But there we go. But do you recognize what is it?
Smiley face.
It's a smiling face, and everybody recognizes it and sees it's a smiling face. If you saw someone walking down the street and this was sitting on their shoulders and they had to gaping holes and then this line. It would be terrifying. Like this has nothing to do with reality. It's just this representation. And so when you're doing artwork, you have to cross that boundary too, especially when doing like portraitures. You have this tendency, I want to draw the nose and then the eyes, and somehow they're not connecting, and then you have to let it go and you say like, okay, what I actually see is shadow here, and I see a line here, and I see a highlight here, and then suddenly it becomes this very accurate, realistic thing. And when you take that kind of approach also to either mentoring or doing work, or even giving feedback, you can do the same thing. Like we just talked about the pluses of like storytelling and generating the story. But the flip side to that is being able to see things for the way they are and giving that kind of feedback. And so you say, hey, you did a fantastic job. The way you did it was horrendous. You stepped all over people. You got the job done, but everyone's upset and, the team's not happy. Or vice versa. You were super nice and you're very cordial and everyone loves working with you, but we made no progress. We didn't get to where we needed to be. And people sometimes have a hard time with that. Everyone wants so did I do great or did I do horrible? Like, tell me which one I did. And it can be very unsatisfying. Like, no, you need to see the components here. And you did some things fantastic and some things that needed improvement. And that's okay because that's everybody.
Yeah. I love how the art is definitely a perspective. I mean, sometimes you can go into an art gallery and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at, right? And but somehow somebody's standing next to you and it's like, oh, you don't see it? And I'm like, I do not see it. No, I don't know what I'm looking at. It looks like a lot of different colors. And I think the way that you said that is like coloring outside the lines. My 4-year-old, right, is like, oh, you got to color inside the lines. And here we are trying to define, right, what's good and what's bad. And outside the lines was never something that was celebrated. I love how you said too is like the word horrible, and like you notice that some people, when you are giving and delivering, whether it's candid or candor feedback, right, different words mean different things to different people, right? So
yes.
And I love how you kind of said that is, and what I have found and what I'm asking you is the crux of communication. I mean, you're talking about different cultures and you're trying to find a unifying word or a unifying message, but even with those different perspectives of that same word, I have found it's better to ask, like, what did you hear and what did you take away after you deliver that? What have you found? I mean, because you're crossing boundaries, you're crossing culture gaps, and probably a lot of different, from engineers to the factory floor. Like, what have you found as some of the keys to great communication to get that alignment?
Yeah, what you said is just spot on. You can give two people a scripted response and they can respond to you wildly different. And so, and it comes back to very basic, simple things, right? And it's about listening and interacting with someone, right? And so when you sit down and you're actually listening and you're engaging with them, you're picking up on all their nonverbal cues. Like, why did they suddenly get tense? And why did they suddenly do this? And then you act exactly how you said. You just ask, like, I think you don't feel comfortable with this. Can you explain that? And then so you're able to do that and expand on that. And I think that's the key to clearing it up. And that also crosses a lot of boundaries, cultural, global boundaries, when you see people and you can tell when someone like tightens up or you can tell someone disengages, that's a universal behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool.
And is that the kind of way that y'all like kind of roll over there, Richard? Like, I loved what I heard from you is like y'all like almost grade the process and not the outcome in a way. Like you grade like the story, like what you just mentioned, which I think is awesome. I think that's almost like new age, because a lot of people just see the bottom line, the project's done. They don't care if someone was a jerk during it, and then they're probably going to repeat itself again. Great outcome. We don't care about how it got there. It just got finished.
That's right.
But is that kind of like the Chevron way, man? Like, y'all seem a little different. I won't name any names, Richard, but I have heard some cutthroat things, my man, at center of excellence programs at your competitors. Let's just leave it at that. It's like fist fighting wild, right? And I'm not even like I am not putting a blanket over that at all. Do y'all have a little more laid back culture? Do you feel like, and a little maybe just kind of dialed in on grading the process and grading people's attitudes and how people treat each other? Because at these other places, they do not care, man.
No, yeah, it matters. I mean, it matters big time. And it was always kind of part of the culture since I've been there. I've been there now for almost 20 years, right? And it was always kind of baked into the culture. And recently, it's actually formalized in performance reviews. When you fill them out, there's a section, and the section is about, like, how did you actually accomplish the results? What were the metrics? And then there's a section that's specifically on how did you do them? Like, you know, there's categories like win together. Did you foster that kind of environment when you were doing all of your work? And did challenge each other? Did you respectfully challenge everybody and bring that forward? So it's actually very formal in our performance reviews.
And do you hear that coming from people coming over to y'all from your competitors? Like the difference?
I cannot tell you how many spectacular people I've hired because they said, I cannot deal with this one more day.
Okay.
I mean, I'm talking experienced, amazing, I mean, they will bleed for you type people that will come in and do this.
That's amazing.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes changes the scenery, but when you find an opportunity that you are celebrated for that individuality is special. You know, I think that we push almost like this conformity in a lot of, and then companies are amiss as to why they're not innovating, right? And then why the status quo is never really ultimately changing. But those two examples.
And why is everybody turning over all of a sudden? And how come we have so much attrition suddenly?
Exactly.
Yeah. It affects everything.
Exactly. But it's like what worked 40 years ago isn't going to work today, even though, and it's funny, they see innovation on one side from a product standpoint or a service standpoint, but never apply those same principles internally with the same, I guess, grit, right? Or curiosity.
Yes.
It's always like, it's always going to be there kind of thing. What's if you had to say, like, I guess your intention?
Hold on, give me 1 second. Just 1 second.
I didn't know if that was Chase Ty or his dog.
So, sorry, my dog wandered in here.
Yeah, he wants.
And she lost the ball behind the thing, and so now she's very upset and is growling and yelling. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, get that ball, Richard.
I thought it was Chase's. I was like, oh, Chase must be around. Or Chance.
No, man.
That's too funny.
Okay, sorry about that.
I was saying from the performance reviews, you know, you can take the metrics, you can take the results, but it really only tells you maybe a quarter of the story at best. But then when you start to like values, right, is how do you live up to these values and how do you actually put them to work for, and what does that actually mean? And that's what I found too, is a lot of the words that we put up as far as values, everybody has a different interpretation of those values. You mentioned one, right? Win together. That's great. Collaboration, right, is something I would probably walk in and see on 90% of organizations' walls, right? But respectfully challenge is not one that you often see. And I think that goes back to the candor feedback and giving and delivering feedback. What have you found to be successful in feedback, right? Because some respond well to it, others shut down. What are some of your keys to success for that respectfully challenging? Because I think a lot of times you're holding up a mirror for somebody else, and whether they're willing to hear it or not, or ready to hear it or not, makes all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the advantage of getting to know the people that work for you comes in, because everyone does. Everyone has these challenges, and a lot of times things are influenced by things that are going on with people at home. You know, we all have lives outside of work, believe it or not. And it's been a strange thing over the last 20 years to see this shift of like, oh, well, you turn that off. You know, it's like, have you seen that Apple TV series Severance?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like
Okay. So that was old school philosophy. You walk in the door, you turn it all off. and then we don't want to hear about it, and then you go home, and then you can deal with it. And so, and it's nice to see, like, okay, we don't think that way anymore. We acknowledge that people are multifaceted, and we find that that's a very successful way to approach retention, like we're talking about for hiring people, all of that. And so it's being able to know and engage with folks. And it's tough. Nobody says it's easy. You do have to draw boundaries, and there's these boundaries between, look, yes, I'm your boss, I'm not your buddy, and so there's certain boundaries that you're always having to like give and take. But you find them, if you take the time to talk with people and help them grow and develop, you find what those
Absolutely.
are.
And I think that matters more than any raise that you can potentially give them too.
That's right.
Yeah, man. And I've heard some sad stories, Richard. I'm glad you brought that up, man. My brother-in-law was in the CO. He had a competitor of yours, and one of his project managers got released after like 34 years. And he said he was in the elevator with this guy, and the guy pretty much said, "Dude, I went through a divorce because of this. Because this job is all me. Like his whole identity was a project manager for, and he was probably like the principal of project manager. He was pretty darn high up there, senior. And just the look on his face, my brother-in-law said, it was just dead. And that's kind of what triggered my brother-in-law. He was like, dude, I can't go down this route. And Richard, when we met the first time, I was like, dude, is everyone like this over there? And you're like, getting there, or we better, man, or it's just going to be some sad stories. And Richard, I know that you're involved with all sorts of things, man. I think you like to give back any way you can, just by meeting you for an hour here. And we had a chat about a month or two ago. But what the heck are you doing over in Lubbock, man, with Texas Tech?
Oh, Lubbock. Okay, yeah. So that's my alma mater there. And so, yeah, I connected with their chemical engineering department, and there's an external advisory board. And so last year I became the chair of that advisory board. And it is just awesome. It's really great to be able to go back and then see the students and connect with people there. And then being able to influence and help them with their programs and say, okay, this is the direction we see industry. This is what we think is important. And how are you tailoring your classes? They have an amazing, they received an amazing gift a couple of years ago for a pilot plant. And it's this great structure for students to learn on, but it's challenging. It's challenging to be able to do the upkeep and the maintenance and the running. That's the stuff we do every day. And so being able to contribute that to them is great. And the students just, you spend 10 minutes with somebody and it's just amazing. You can see them light up about, like, I'm talking to somebody in industry. And I remember, it reminds me of being on the other side of that, and how valuable that was to me when someone, took the time to just talk to me for a little bit.
It matters, right? And I just had the same experience. There's a college up here building out a new cybersecurity program. And so I had some industry leaders jump on. Let me just tell you guys, they restructured this thing in about 10 minutes, they were just writing notes down. And I even had some input because I see what hiring managers need. And it's crazy to me that, these kids are spending, I don't even know how many thousands of dollars a semester. And for them to be off, or not coming out with the certificates or the real world experience, just mind blowing. Like I even remember, Richard, when I was in college, I was like, how does this apply, guys? And in my entrepreneurial head, I was like, honestly, I'm going to get someone to do this for me. This is not my bag, man. Financial analysis and all this stuff. Are you kidding me? And the thing was, does anyone care? Does anyone care? I would go talk to my advisor, and they're like, "Oh, you're a great fit for this," and I'm like, "Dude, no one cares around here. I'm just giving you, $60,000 just to fail." So I think it's really cool, Richard, that they have industry experience like you, sitting on that chair, probably tweaking it a little bit, telling them exactly what's going on in the industry for these kiddos to come out with something. And especially the way this AI stuff's coming out. I've had some scary conversations with some people, lately, pretty much saying, Tyler, I can hire you in 5 years because these tech skills are not going to be needed. And I'm like, me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, that's comforting.
That's where I set the bar. I walked to my car and you're like, but that's real cool, man. That you're doing that with them.
And it is. It's a lot of fun. And I remember because when I went to school and I went to college, I was the first person in my family to go outside of El Paso. I grew up in El Paso, and so my sister was the first to go to college, and she went to UTEP. And then I said, I want to leave. I want to go to college. And it was just like, talking about cultural things. That was just a thing that, no, you don't do that. You stay with the family and you're just here. And then so when I was going through my education there, it was hard for me. I didn't know any engineers. I didn't even know what engineering was. I got into it because somebody else was studying it. I started as a pre-med, and then somebody else was studying and said, "Oh, you're really smart. Take a look at this. Can you help me?" I said, "I have no idea what that is, but now I'm fascinated by it." And that's how I started. And I had no idea, like, the whole system about, like, internships and what the path was and all that. So I missed out on a lot of things, and I had a really rough start when I got out of college. And so that to me was like a thing that I'm going to go back there and I'm going to find these kids that were in the same boat and that just need somebody just to tell them the simple basic things that they're not getting connected to, and it makes a world of difference,
Yeah, definitely. I still remember some of that wisdom, and it's if you're asked, right? I think, like, I was always questioning my grandfather, always asking him, like, what was it like? And I think there's always this belief that it was so different back then, and I mean, they tell you, oh, this isn't as good as it was when I was that age, or you're like, so I understand why you start to develop that belief. But I love how you said is, like, going and talking to those students. It's like, what is one of the best pieces of advice that you give, like, a student or somebody at this stage of their life or their career? What's one of those things that you bestow, that wisdom that you feel like everybody on the planet should hear and know?
Yeah, and that's a tough one because everyone's so different. And so really the best conversations I ever had were either, like, with a group of students and it's just a round table. And they just say, like, okay, cool, here's who I am, here's my background. What's on your mind? What are your questions? And half the time I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot what it's like to be confused about that. Like, I take that for granted now, and they'll ask about simple things, and they'll ask about, like, well, when you're looking for jobs, are you is it bad if you ask for more money? Is it how do you and it just evolves. Everyone has these different perspectives and things they don't know, and when you sit down and you just give them the lead, a lot of times they want to run with it. They're anxious to run with it. And so that's the greatest way I found to plug in with them.
That. Yeah.
That's awesome. And Richard, I want to ask you from a manager perspective here, because I have some kids actually coming out of Texas Tech that I'm friends with their dads. And I'm putting them to work, dude. Like I am putting, so what I'm having them do is, they're from Texas Tech. They're in, like, the supply chain side of the house, like, on their degree. Yeah. And they don't know this, but I probably already have jobs for them, but I'm just trying to get them acclimated, man. So what I'm having, but the response has been pretty cool. I just want to hear your feedback here. So they're in Dallas. They all went to these two guys, felt boys, they're kids, right? Went to Texas Tech. And I had them write up, like, a message to send to hiring managers, because there's like 3,000 applicants for every job, right? Yes. And like I said, these kids probably have a job that I have for them. They don't know it yet. But I have them filtering people that went to Texas Tech that are hiring managers in the logistics or supply chain industry. And I'm having them pretty much send, like, a guns up message to the Texas Tech hiring managers and just asking them for a simple coffee. So I had one kid's doing a lot better than the other because he's actually doing it, I think. But this kid has 8 meetings with hiring managers in Dallas.
What?
Yeah, he's got more meetings than I have this week with my clients. But
be careful, you're going to lose him.
And that's okay. I'm just trying to get the kids some real world experience. But where I was going with it is it was funny because his first message he wrote was like this long message, and I said, "Dude, did you write this with AI?" And he immediately goes, "Yeah, man!" Like it was like a normal thing. I was like, for one, like if you're messaging Richard Hernandez on LinkedIn, do you have time to read 3 paragraphs of an AI? Or are you looking for a guns up, Richard? I just freaking graduated and I don't know where to start, bro. It's kind of what I tweak their message at. And the feedback is amazing. But like, is there any insight you could give the kids out there? Is that a decent way to do it? Because like, I think I have a little proof in the pudding, but how could I even get better at that with the messaging for them or tactical ways like that? Because you kind of have to do that nowadays to beat the 3,000 applicants going for something like, especially at entry level right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I love that you're taking that approach. That is so valuable for someone to learn early on about making the connections, right? It's something that, you know, even throughout my career, it took me a long time to like understand that. I would always like sit back and wait, like I did a good job. I'm waiting for somebody to recognize that. And hopefully somebody will at some point, you know, but it is exactly what you're talking about. You have to make those connections and you have to figure out what is that connection. That's a great one, a very simple one. And if somebody had sent me a message like, hey, I graduated from where you graduated from, and, you know, I'm a little lost and I would love to connect, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to make time for this person right now. Like, this is something I get energized about. And everybody has their kind of thing, right? And now it's very easy. You go on LinkedIn and you can get a really good feel for like what's important to somebody and what they like and what they get into. And if you do a personalized message and just say, hey, I noticed you're doing research in electrified heating and I've done some research too. And I've really been trying to figure out what the market is and how I can apply this. Like, you're going to connect with that person right away because they're in the same boat and they've got something to offer. So yeah, I love that you're doing that.
Oh, it's like a fun game to me. Like, I know it's serious, but it's like fun. You know, like seeing like the kid go from AI 3 paragraphs to like, it was like 3 sentences. And I think the last sentence I had him write was like, I can meet you in McKinney, Plano, wherever it is, because I ain't got nothing better to do right now. you know, at least make it easy on the manager to meet him is what I was going with the slight twist of like honest humor. You know, I was telling this guy like, so you don't have anything to do, and he's like, no. I was like, so you can drive 45 minutes to meet with the manager. Yes. So that pretty much. So I just wanted to hear your feedback, Richard, on if I'm.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
And you're absolutely correct. AI and everything is growing so quickly. The advantage of putting into AI and getting this crisp, perfectly scripted thing, that advantage is over. It's over.
You should see my face, Richard. I was like, and if you know me, man, I'm not that dude. Like this guy, he was so proud of it. He was like, check it out. And I got through like 4, it was like too perfect. I was like, dude, no way.
Nobody talks like that. Yeah.
And Ken Richard, the feedback, he immediately was like, yeah, man. Like I use that. Like, of course.
Well, that's the same. I mean, I was just writing down. I think you talked about it earlier, Richard. The connection piece, the humanizing yourself rather than systematizing it, right? To this element of perfection. I mean, yeah, misspelled words and all that other stuff. People used to get very embarrassed on their posts, and I never really cared. And Tyler and I, for this show, we absolutely wanted the imperfection because I think social media already does a good enough job showing us success, but not really what it takes to get there, right? And so then we have this false expectation that why am I not successful? Something must be wrong with me. And no one ultimately shares like some of their missteps, those failures. Just asking, for a friend, but what was one of the biggest things that you failed at, and what did you learn from that experience?
Oh, goodness. Oh, we're going to go deep now, aren't we? All right.
What did you suck at, Richard? Now you're good at. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a story about when, I was like in my mid-20s, right? And I was put in charge of this job, and we would do environmental testing at different sites, right? And we would travel and take equipment with us and whatnot. And so we traveled, and it's, how do I describe it? We were working night shift. The crew before us was supposed to have set up, but they got delayed, et cetera, right? And so we're there, and we notice like something's off. Like we we used to travel up those, see at the plants, these like huge 200-foot stacks, with the emissions. We used to like go up them and test things at the top, And so we noticed offhand something was wrong, right? And so we started to go up and had this little mini elevator, and we could smell like sulfur, like something's wrong. It shouldn't be like this here. We came back down. We contacted the operators. The first operator that came out said, like, I'm not going up in this elevator. Like, that elevator's a death trap. I would never go up in that. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not comforting either, like, okay. And so, but no, there is something wrong. And he said, no, I can't tell anything's wrong. Right. And so he leaves, and we call our plant contact. Well, he had just left. He was unavailable. I called the person ahead of us. He's like, oh, sorry, we didn't set up anything. I have no idea what's going on. And then I called my boss, right? And my boss was back in Houston, and we were in Arizona. And he yelled at me. He was like, oh, what do you want me to do? I'm here in Houston. Like, do you need me to fly out there and do your job for you? And I was just, I was young, and I was trying to prove I'm a good leader. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, and so there was so much pressure. It was only me and one other person working that night shift. And so we went up there and, said, okay, by chance we packed these gas masks, right? So we'll put them on just in case. We'll go up there, blah, blah, blah. We did the work throughout the night. It was horrible. It was a condition we should never have worked in. Turns out later we found out that in prepping for the job, maintenance had left a door open towards the bottom of the stack. And so all the emissions were leaking into the area that we were working in. And we worked in it all night. And I think, truthfully, the only thing that saved us is we happened to have those gas masks with us. And so many things failed and went wrong. And, it's, one of those things that you can blame. Like I called my boss, and he was bad, and he was mean to me, and the contact didn't. But then ultimately, it was this really brutal lesson as a leader. Like, I was the final stop at this. I could have just said no and forced that to happen, but I was too scared, and I was too, intimidated and motivated by, like, I want to be seen as a good job, and and so that was hard. That was a really hard lesson to go backwards and look at, and even right now, it like makes me tear up a little bit. Like, oh man, that was just brutal. But it's one of those things, and it's like you talked about. We don't share these things. It's too embarrassing. It's too embarrassing to say, like, I did this and it was wrong, and but people go through these things, and it's the power of sharing, like, real stories like this that say, like, okay, hey, that these things happen, and we have to learn from them, and we have to share those things, and and so that to me was like the make or break for me as a leader early on. Like, I really had to stop and think, do I want to do this anymore? Can I do this anymore? Or am I going to learn and make this something better?
I love how you said it, because I think so many people are making decisions and choices or doing things just out of fear rather than really taking stock and saying, would I do this to somebody that I love, or am I doing this out of love? But to your point, I think admitting failure is really hard for a lot of people, but it's owning it. Ultimately, because everybody can go back to a time that they fell short, or gave into a temptation or any of that. So I think that's a really cool story. I appreciate it, Richard. This has been a great conversation today, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same here. It was so great to meet you. It's so great talking to you all.
Yeah, man. Richard, you made this easy, man. From the stuff. This has been one of our best ones by far for a little while, man. And just want to say also thank you, Richard, for taking your time out, man. And if you have any random rascals reaching out to you with your skill set, you know where it came from, man.
There we go.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Send them on over.
Okay.
This has been great. Thanks again.